So this is my third time around. I'm kind of getting used to the spin of this. But welcome to the panel, and arguably, I believe this is the most important panel throughout the last 3 days, because through all the discussions, everyone has pointed out the importance of SMEs in travel. They form 80% of businesses, and they are responsible for really connecting travelers to the experience that everyone's craving. So joining me on my panel, I'm very happy to have, and I went to ChatGPT very quickly to help me with introductions to them, and amazing what came out. So I'm going to go by ChatGPT's order. Please meet Tao Tao of GetYourGuide. He's proof that curiosity can be a business model. Meet Tao Tao, the explorer-in-chief of GetYourGuide. Okay, Craig, you have. He's the entrepreneur turning where you stay into why you stay. Craig Everett of Holibob. Oh, this is beautiful. Andrea Bellagio, Andrea Grisdale. She's the woman who turns Italy into a handmade experience. I didn't write that, you know. AI wrote that.
That one's done.
He's the strategist helping global brands turn AI into real-world transformation. Federico Pienovi of Globant. Please join me in welcoming my panelists. So that was the AI introductions done. Did you like that?
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, so as I said, I think this is the most important panel, right? You know, because people don't say, like, I went to Riyadh and I stayed in Marriott or Ritz-Carlton. I say I went to Riyadh and I had a wonderful experience with a tour guide. So let's start with a critical question facing this panel. In one word, tell us why you think SMEs are critical to the travel and tourism industry. Great.
Authenticity.
Okay.
Heartbeat.
Originality.
Customization.
Sorry?
Customization.
All right. Okay. So now we say, okay, first we had the internet, and then mobile, and now we are in the third age of digital travel, AI, right? And apparently, e-commerce and digital trade are expected to be adopted by 75% of businesses, which is an opportunity for SMEs, right? So tell us very crisply why you believe this is the most significant time or the biggest opportunity for SMEs to scale with AI and technology. So I'm going to start with you, Craig.
I think we've talked about trying to generate a seamless traveler experience for years and years. And you know, travel is inherently complicated with all the different bits that need to come together. You've got SMEs collaborating with some of the world's biggest companies, be it airlines or hotel groups. And they all need to come together in order to create this seamless end-to-end traveler experience. And I think agentic AI particularly has the ability to pull all of those elements together and generate that truly personalized experience that travelers crave, and also make it easy and seamless. We're very happy to be a part of the Agentic AI coalition that was announced by His Excellency yesterday, alongside Globant. And I think there's the foundation there of some very exciting conversations which could provide the bedrock for that seamless traveler experience.
So defining moment with Agentic AI. Andrea, do you believe all that?
Yeah. The way I see it, technology, AI, you know, so many SMEs, we don't have a huge amount of staff. I personally have 36 people on my team. And as a DMC, I could be described as a larger DMC. But so many of our people, they are multitasking. And we are now using AI to take away all of those tasks that don't need heart, that don't need the passion, that don't need the care, and that don't need the necessity to look one step beyond and use what we do, how we do it, to have a positive impact on people's lives.
Okay. Tao?
I think this is going to be the golden age for SMEs, fundamentally, because what AI will do is really take care of the operations work, the grudging work. You know, one of the things we're already seeing, so we work with over 35,000 operators of experiences, and over 60% of them already use AI on a day-to-day basis to manage operations, upload content. So I think this is going to be a renaissance for SMEs, and that's a good thing.
All right. And you are obviously going to say it's the super golden age.
No, 100%, and I agree with the entire panel. But I truly believe that the opportunity is now, not even because of the technology, but also because the large players are slow to move, right? So we see that SMEs can innovate much faster, and giving them the right tools to innovate is essential. That's why, the coalition we want to bring is how tourist agentic AI can really help create those amazing experiences that you're creating in Italy, but with the heart, and not having people operating very traditional old silo systems, but instead interconnecting all of the experiences, the arrivals, the transportation, the local flavors into one seamless experience that today is not possible.
Okay, so I'm going to be the devil's advocate because I speak to a lot of, obviously, the giant OTAs like Booking, Expedia, Trip, and in a way, sometimes I feel like maybe we're fooling ourselves, right? Because this new age of tech really basically relies on data, like tons and tons of data, relies on networks and scale, right? So surely, for me, SMEs will be crushed even more by agent giants with scale. So agree or disagree?
I disagree.
Okay.
Obviously disagree.
Yeah, but there's got to be some level of agreement there.
No, because I think in part of your question, a lot of the companies you mentioned, that's a different product they sell, right? So just for context, so GetYourGuide is the global leader for travel experiences. So over the last 12 months, we've approached more than $1 billion in revenue, profitable, 30% year-on-year growth. So we look at this data at scale. And what we see in our data is the fastest growing segments of our 35,000 suppliers and over 170,000 activities is the fastest growing segment are the SMEs. It's not the large attractions, they're growing, but the fastest growing segments are the SMEs. And because it's that human connection that cannot be replaced. 9 out of 10 of our customers, when they leave a review, so of the tens of millions of reviews people leave, they all cite the tour guide as the most important part of that experience. So yes, they say the scenic views are great, the attraction was great, but it's the tour guide, that human face, that really makes the experience.
But to give some reason to your point, right? It's true that we need interoperability, right? We need to be able to start connecting data that today maybe the big players have with the local data, right? So until we don't get to an agreement on how, for example, agent to agent, AI agent to AI agent can collaborate, it's going to be very difficult for the small players to take some advantage because the large players host most of the data. So we need to get to an agreement in how we create that interoperability and that data connectivity between the SMEs, between the big ones, to really start getting the value out of both. Because I think in this ecosystem, both can survive, but the reality is that you cannot create the tangible local experience without the SMEs, but you cannot have the scale without the large operators.
Exactly. So you need them to come on board, right? But data is their moat. So it's going to be hard for us to breach that moat.
But you're going to have a vanilla experience, right? If you go that direction.
People travel for the experiences that they experience when they're in destination. That's why Holibob exists. So we want to connect travelers to incredible experiences around the world. And SMEs are the ones that provide those incredible experiences for the most part. So we need to, as businesses, enable SMEs, help with the data connectivity, help with the tooling, which actually helps them to be better and serve that traveler need.
Empower them. So I find it interesting because in the earlier panel too, I mean, the human element is coming to the fore this time more than ever, actually, And if you talk to Virtuoso, was talking about the power of the travel advisor. Tao, you just spoke about 9 out of 10 travelers always rate the tour guide, so that human element. Andrea, that must be good news for you, right? So you're seeing that trend?
Absolutely. One of my favorite phrases, it's all about the people, and that is definitely what our business is all about. If I may as well, I would love to, going back to your previous question, My company is 26 years old. I'm in the business over 30 years. And this is the first year that I've been to 2 almost back-to-back conferences. And SMEs has been a huge focus of the conference. The first was the WTTC in Rome, and then now here at TOURISE. And there's just been so much respect and so much discussion around SMEs, which is music to my ears. You may know also that WTTC, they launched last year an initiative called Together in Travel. And that is a free-to-subscribe initiative, absolutely 100% focused on SMEs, to create pride in what they do and to empower them and also to give them practical tools. And guess who are the people behind that initiative funding it? The big companies. So I think that really does tell us a lot.
Right, so the moment of recognition is here, finally recognizing the value that human-run agencies are really bringing to the business. So now let's talk practically, though, about how you can actually scale with technology. And I'm going to go to the audience for a question, which is to find out what the barriers are to scaling. So if we can have that poll. Is it limited access to financing and investment? Is it high cost and complexity of tech adoption? Is it gaps in data, analytics, and digital skills? Or is it building brand visibility and partnerships? Would you pick one answer while we wait for the audience to answer? Tao?
I think all of these barriers are falling. I don't see any of these
What is the
barriers.
biggest, though? Like, if you had to tackle one as a priority, what would be the one that you tackle?
Probably the gaps in data and digital skills.
I agree. The gaps in data, 100%.
I would go with number 4.
Building brand visibility.
Yeah.
For you, how you build your brand in crowded markets.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you got any solutions? Like, what would be your wish list, right? Because you're in this audience, is a big ecosystem here. If you say that is a barrier, how would you like it to be addressed?
I think that we need to, as a sector at large, travel and tourism doesn't do the best job at communicating and educating the world what an amazing sector we are, and how much positive impact we can have, and what a great sector it is to work in. There are so many amazing people who've had the most incredible careers with only soft skills in our business. How many other industries enable that? We have to get the word out, and we need people, I would say, in the education and communication business to help us do a much better job at really communicating also what we do, the ripple effect that it has, and how many lives that we actually touch.
All right. Right? What would you pick?
I'll be quite specific. I think digital skills is the biggest challenge. And I think it's very easy for us as technologists who run, other than yourself, Andrea, to sit here and speak to a room of, highly educated technologists or travel people, and we forget, there's a world of businesses who, might run on Excel still, or it might even run on kind of a paper diary. So there's a lot of education, and I think the public sector, private sector collaboration as we go through this change is going to be absolutely fundamental to allowing us to achieve the potential of agentic/AI, but I think digital skills is...
So you've identified the biggest barrier to scaling for SMEs. What about your own business, right? Because you are SME, I would say, right? So what's the biggest challenge you face personally in scaling your business?
Digital skills. We have very capable, but the tooling is changing so fast, right? Internally we use, we've got engineering teams who are now having to retrain, change their entire mindset from, writing code to using AI agents. And, we're a B2B business, so we work with other consumer-facing travel businesses to enable them to upsell and cross-sell experiences. So an airline who's flying customers from Riyadh to London, we would help them to sell attractions. So there's digital skills on our side of the fence, and then there's digital skills on our partner side of the fence.
It's a common barrier. Andrea, what is the biggest challenge facing you in scaling your own business?
We would love to have an amazing tech product to manage what we do on a daily basis.
Well, Tao and Craig and Fred can help you. All right. Tao, what's the biggest barrier you face? Get Your Guide. I mean, you guys have scaled fantastically. After your founding, like how many years ago?
16 years ago.
16 years ago.
First job.
Fantastic. So, what is the biggest challenge you face right now in scaling your business?
I think the challenge in scaling technology companies is in a strange way always the culture. So we have about 50 nationalities, 95% of people from all over the world. So we're based in Berlin, Germany, but 95% are non-Germans. And there's a set of principles and core values that we believe in, and scaling that is actually the hardest part.
All right. What about you? Your own business?
No, the reality, I think today, and I'm talking more about SMEs, right? For example, here in Saudi, right, we're building many SMEs. Tourism has been probably one of the oldest industries in the world. We have traveled for forever. Technology advancements have allowed us to do even more. But if you look at the pool, you see data gaps and building a brand, right? Here in Saudi, they're opening the door. They're not used to hosting, well, they're very good hosts, but not bringing people from the outside to visit the country, right? So they need to build brand, but they need data, they need partnerships, they need connectivity in order to do that, because they need to differentiate to the massive amount of experiences that today you can have around the world. So in order to really scale up, you need to start using data to make your brand different than the brand when you go and visit Italy, Spain. Now Saudi needs to build their own brand. Right. And how technology allows them to tell the story is much deeper than the story that the big Booking.com, Expedia can tell, because it's not that tangible as the story told by themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Who has the data, do you think?
What?
Who has the data? Where is the data?
Well, that's super important. When you're thinking about tourism, you're thinking about massive amount of players having a say in that. Is the airlines, is the airport, is the local businesses, is the transportation, are the hotels, who's coming with you, what do you like, why do you like that, at what time are you arriving, and how you can create that seamless experience being as frictionless as possible. Who likes going to an airport? Nobody. Hate going to an airport, right? I have 4 kids, imagine that. Going on vacation, I start the first 5 days, in bed trying to recover from the travel.
Yeah, but I'm glad, that the answer is not, I was kind of expecting there's going to be limited access to financing, right? So clearly, money not the issue. It is basically gaps in data, and then that helps you with the building brand. So the two issues are actually connected.
If you asked me 5 years ago,
pardon?
If you asked me 5 years ago,
okay,
I think financing would be extremely important, because you need to build
but
infrastructure.
I'm asking
but today,
now.
the
money
available.
is not an issue. Okay, so now we get into each of your businesses, and Tao, Get Your Guide, you just held your Unlock Summit in Asia, which I was at, and you've declared it as that new frontier of growth, right, Asia. So talk to us about the potential of the travel experiences market in Asia, and what will it take to unlock that for you?
Yeah, so what Siew was referring to, so we just had our Supply Partners Conference with a couple hundred of our best partners in APAC. And we actually also invited our partners from the Middle East. So we view both the Middle East and APAC as by far the fastest growing destinations. So we're seeing double the growth in these destinations than we're seeing in other places. But we're also seeing tremendous growth from an outbound perspective. So it's about Middle Easterners or Asians going to Europe, going to the US, where we have strong inventory. So our focus is very clear, enriching our inventory. So we have about 50 to 60,000 activities in Asia and the Middle East, and we want to grow that much further. And also we want to help those outbound travelers from Saudi and from Asia to travel to Europe and to the US, where we have really great experiences.
Yeah, actually, Andrea raised a really interesting point behind the scenes just now, because he says, we've talked about the power of the millennials and the Gen Z market. It's going to be really changing global travel, and here we have people who are in that bracket, right? So you guys are the current traveler and the future traveler, and you're going to be changing global travel, at the same time working within it. So I think that that's great. I think that connection is being made. So Andrea, you offer bespoke travel experiences and exclusive villa rentals. Sounds like the kind of partner I want. What was the biggest challenge you faced, while you were scaling, but, still you have to stay deeply personal to your roots?
Exactly.
It's difficult, isn't it?
That I think is a very important comment. One of the values of my company is we care. And, we have to put that level of care into our people. And by the way, my team of 36 people, we have an average age of 31. I believe very much in young people and the next generation. And while I also believe in strong leadership from above, it's definitely, we have to have conversations where we're all at the same table and every opinion matters. So scaling, how do we scale our businesses yet keep our heart in it? And how do we scale our businesses and make sure that we don't leave people behind? We take them with us on our journey as we grow, which I believe is fundamental, and that we continue to create opportunities. I also wanted to mention, if I may, that one of the biggest saviors I've had in 26 years of my business is looking at every challenge, calling it a challenge, never a problem. We don't do problems, we have challenges, and every challenge is an opportunity. And that totally changes the playing field on how you approach things.
So what is the biggest challenge in competing with these platforms that are so good at scaling villa rentals, which is an area that you're in, right? And that's a massively growing market for the online platforms right now.
Well, in all honesty, our main business is DMC. So, I would say we create the most incredible itineraries and authentic experiences throughout Italy for our guests.
Right.
However, what we really do is create the most incredible opportunities also for the people who we are visiting.
Yep.
And if I may as well, for our travelers, we have found that speaking with our people on the ground, they take so much away from the conversations that they have with our travelers. So not only, we create ripple effects, right, as DMCs. Not only are we creating amazing experiences, we're a force for good, we're creating economy jobs, blah, blah, blah. We are also giving these people on the ground access to international guests and opening up a whole new world for them.
You speak with so much passion and so much care. And Craig, so you work with small operators, you help them digitize. What is your playbook? Like, is Middle East a big market right now for you?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we trade in experiences. And as we've all talked about, SMEs, DMCs are fundamental in terms of creating that incredible experience for customers. I think one of the big challenges that we see as kind of demand grows and as SMEs become a much bigger part of the supply chain is around customer service and operations, because these SMEs need to deal with a lot more volume. If they work with a platform like GetYourGuide, they obviously get a lot more bookings, and then they're servicing and managing an international audience. So I think the biggest problem that we see is we need SMEs to mature. They're great at delivering incredible experiences, but they also need to deliver like an incredible operationally solid experience to travelers.
Right, because most of the long tail of travel has always been the most challenging to digitize, right? I mean, the man who's doing the boat tours down the Skreng River in Sarawak, he's not geared up to handle volume, right? So that's got to be one challenge in sort of bringing all these experiences to platforms like yours. So how are you overcoming that? How?
I think, and when we started the business 16 years ago, we were pitching at these startup competitions at ITB and other travel conferences, and everybody said no because exactly this fragmentation. And it is precisely this fragmentation that is the power. I wanted to add to something that Andrea said I think is very important, which is the actual economic impact that SMEs drive to the economy. So, our role is we very much see ourselves as empowering these local entrepreneurs, right? So, we're not great operators ourselves. We try to be a platform to empower. And we recently did a study with the tourism professor at Bocconi University, in Italy. And what we saw is, so out of the millions of customers in 24 that we had in Italy, 18% said that they chose Italy because of the experiences they could do in their destination. And if you add those 18% to the number of incremental trips that we generated for Italy, that's about a 5 to 9 billion US dollars of economic impact, because experiences will be the thing that will lead trips. It used to be that you think about a destination, you book the hotel, now it's experience-led. You look at the experiences, you choose the destination, and the economic impact that these SMEs are driving is massive for the economies.
Great. So time for recognition even more for that impact, that it's actually leading the traveler desire. Okay, so Federico, I mean, Globant has 30,000 employees across 33 countries, and you work across industries, right? So how does travel stack up in terms of AI adoption? Are there lessons we can learn from other industries that we can apply to SMEs in travel?
I think when we are talking at Globant about experiences, is very broad, right? Because you have experiences in a stadium, you have experiences when traveling, you have experiences at an airport, right? The other day we were working with the King Salman International Airport, and it's a multi-venue, multi-use facility. It's no longer an airport where you go and do check-in and you board the plane. It's where you shop, it's where you dine, it's where you entertain your kids, or where you basically spend your time. So the reality is, for us, the technology now is allowing to connect all this into a seamless experience, and that tailorization is what we ask in the white paper that we published alongside the tourism minister, that 91% of travelers create loyalty because of the experience on personalization, right? So as long as SMEs can continue to drive that personalization, it's going to drive loyalty. And driving loyalty today, we see as the big differentiator to anything else. And also, one thing that I want to add to SMEs, when you're talking about that guy that is building a boat in the middle of nowhere, you know that now technology is even reaching them, because if you go to influencers, if you go to Reels, to TikTok, people experiences those things, are filming and telling about the story, and that gets distributed to millions of people. So the data is also there about those experiences. It's just how we capture that data and integrate that data for people across the ecosystem to consume.
All right. Okay. So now let's look to the future and look to the future growth. And I'm going to do an audience poll here and talk about investment, like what would you invest in now to scale your business, right? So which scaling lever would you invest in if you were starting now? So the first answer is, can we have the poll, please? So the first one is AI recommendations. 2, is it platform or marketplace integration? 3, is it data and analytics? 4, is it strategic partnerships and co-marketing, if I could have the poll. Did you hear my answers? So which would you invest in? Which would you invest in?
Because we, as a business, Holibob, I totally agree with Tao's points around people choose where they're going based on the experiences that they can do. But what we still see is that when people book is in that post-booking flow. So important for us is about how we choose the right product to put in front of customers. And therefore, we're investing a lot in how we work with our partners, so the airlines, the OTAs, the travel agents, to use their data in order to drive the right recommendations to travelers.
Basically, AI recommendations, that's what you're investing in, and you would advise the industry to, I mean, the people in the audience to do that, invest. Okay. Andrea.
First, my people. Second, tech. And third, the strategic partnerships and co-marketing.
Okay, people, tech, and strategic partnerships. Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree with Andrea. So I would pick none of these, and I would go with recruiting and training. I think is the most important part for SMEs over the next decade.
Training, okay.
And I would pick all of them. The reality is, if you don't have strategic partnership, you don't get access to data, so you can't do analytics. And then you cannot do the analytics you need to do automatic personalization. So I think it's a combination of all of this that will bring the
But how do you
scale.
get started? Because it's quite overwhelming, right? What's the first step?
But it really, really depends on where your company stands right now, right? Because you all need all those components. Is your company needing more data? Is your company needing more automation because you already have the data, but you're not using the technology to automate? I think it's
Yeah, I mean, that's such a fantastic set of answers, and it demonstrates how broad the application of the most modern tooling is.
Yeah. The opportunities there, right? I mean, you can see from the audience too is pretty evenly split between recommendations, data and analytics, and strategic partnerships. So pretty blended. Okay, so I'm going to throw out a controversial statement that was uttered at WIT Singapore, in which we host in Singapore, and we had Gareth Williams, the co-founder of Skyscanner, who made that brilliant, beautiful exit to C-Trip, right, for billions of dollars. Anyway, he had this advice for startups, and he says, hiring should be your last resort. With AI, there's so much you can automate before adding people. Every hire adds complexity. I'm sure you're going to disagree with that, right? But is there a grain of truth when you're running a small business? Like, the more people you add, the more complexity it has. Would you like to comment on that?
I think in a way he's right, but if you take the statement of today you have the technology available to you, right? Make sure that you prioritize who and where you're hiring, right? If you're hiring somebody to do operations, we know by this study that between 40 to 70% of existing operations for the tourism industry across all stakeholders can be automated, right? So it's not hiding the problem, it's not looking at the technology first before doing the hire.
So I think Gareth clearly achieved his goal of being quoted by making a controversial statement. Now, look, I think it depends on who you're asking. So I would look at it from the SME perspective, and there it's absolutely incorrect. A very quick story. So one of our most successful supply operators is an Egyptian immigrant who then went to Dubai and started with one car. And now he's scaled to 2,000 employees and has the largest fleet and offers the most desert safaris in Dubai. And he clearly scaled with people. Because, I mean, if you will, in the age of AI, the human connection is that comparative advantage that we as humans still have. And that will scale. So that's one of the things you cannot replace. Right? You won't have virtual experiences. You won't, visit Riyadh through a screen, but you want to be here and be guided with real humans. And so as SMEs, that's why I was saying earlier, the investment in quality and the originality of the people will be the most important aspect.
I know what you're going to say.
People first, technology second, but they both have a place in our businesses.
Yeah, the Minister of Tourism opened TOURISE actually with a very clear call that it is the responsibility of travel and tourism to still create jobs, right? In the age of AI, despite AI, right? And so, do you think that's the responsibility of SMEs to keep creating jobs and to keep training people? What's the role of SMEs in this, or do we leave that to the big boys?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say it depends what kind of business you're trying to build, and I'd also agree that.
How many employees do you have?
So we have around 50 employees.
Pardon?
50.
And you have 36 and
1,000.
32,000.
32,000.
Yeah.
You're creating jobs.
We are creating.
Okay. Sorry.
But in the right places.
I think AI, if we're building a technology business, we think very deeply about every hire that we make, because ultimately, hiring additional headcount adds cultural challenges, etc. But when you think about travel, everyone on this panel has said that experiences are the reason that people travel. And I totally agree with Tao that I cannot see a world where people are walking around with like agentic AI tour guides. I think people want that authentic experience. And therefore, to your question, yes, SMEs are the ones that are able to provide that authentic experience. But then I think it's really important that there's a public sector, private sector partnership to help these SMEs to use the modern tooling that exists today so that they can spend more time doing the boat journey and less time dealing with operations. But learning those skills doesn't happen automatically. It's partnership between the public sector and the private sector that I think is really important to allow SMEs to fulfill their potential.
Well, I hope this platform, basically signals the start of a new beginning for really collaboration with SMEs and big companies to really solve these problems at scale, for our travelers, right? Because that's the most important customer that we have. Okay, so now let's look at growth opportunities. So let's talk to the future. And I ask each of you to cite 3 markets or segments that you believe will be the real sweet spots for smart growth over the next 5 years for travel.
I'm going to cite one, and I think it's like out in nature. I think cities have been the absolute kind of bedrock in which a lot of businesses have been built. But I think, in this digital first world, I think getting out in nature is going to be a massive, massive growth sector.
Okay.
I have 3. First, and for me most important, is the slow season travel. Travelers who are going to destinations outside of the high season months. Obviously, we realize that not everyone has a choice when they can travel, but for those who do, yes. Second is secondary or lesser known destinations. I feel we have a huge responsibility as travel professionals to really educate and communicate again to our travelers just what is out there and how amazing it is. And thirdly, creation of positive impact experiences.
Okay.
So what we see in our data is there are 2 segments that are very clear. One is the actual SMEs, so the small, medium-sized enterprises. They're growing much, much faster than the big guys. And the other segment that's growing faster is transformational travel. So experiential travel is maybe taking a tour. A transformational experience is, for example, learning how to harvest dates. And I was in Japan doing a knife-making class. So transformational travel. And I think geography-wise, I would say I think the Middle East is an incredible growth opportunity. Just being here, the cultural and the natural richness, I think, has tremendous potential.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion the last 2 days about travel that really transforms people, right? Whether overcoming prejudices, perceptions, but really transforms you in either a very practical way, like, oh, I learned to build a knife in Japan. I mean, Japan has this sort of knife-making workshops, or something more spiritual. What about you, Fred?
Yeah, and I agree with everybody. The reality, what we see is that customized local experiences that are outside of the big spectacle, like going to see the Eiffel Tower or going to see the Colosseum Rome, but the local homegrown experiences. And I think here in Middle East are the ones that are growing the fastest.
Right. I heard a term also the other day that said people actually want curation of disconnection experiences. To be actually, to be disconnected. So curation of disconnection was going to be a growth one. Okay, so we have time to wrap up. One-word answer to my rapid fire. So Craig, next-gen traveler. Oh, this is easy for you. Next-gen traveler, experience seeker or deal hunter?
Experience seeker.
Maybe seeking experience deals. Federico or Tao, right? Both of you are startups. So if you could build one startup today, what would it solve, Federico?
The interconnectivity between all the players in the ecosystem.
Orchestrating the links between all the players.
Yeah.
Okay, Tao?
Solving for loneliness, I think that's one of the problems worth solving, and investing into human connection. Travel is part of the answer, but there are probably other answers too.
Oh, are you lonely?
Well, I'm here.
Okay, Andrea, you talked about like a tech product that you wanted to have. So the next-gen travel app must have?
A heart.
Oh. Tao, name a destination that no one's talking about now but will be hot in 20 years.
So this destination is very obvious for this audience, but I'm not a gambler, but I would bet a lot of money that Alula will be one of the top 10 wonders of the world very soon.
Okay, Melanie, are you out there? All right. Federico, what will happen first, moon travel or teleportation?
Teleportation.
Okay, Craig, who will win the future of travel, platforms or communities?
Platforms need communities.
Platforms with communities. Oh, cheat. Okay, Andrea, what's one travel experience that won't exist in 20 years?
over tourism.
Fantastic. Please join me in thanking my panelists, Federico, Tao, Andrea, and Craig. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure being at TOURISE along with my panelists. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.